Billionaire's heartbreaking encounter with triplets kicked out reveals an incredible truth that will change everything. Alex McKinley stood amid Forbes-laden accolades, ensnared by the flush of wealth juxtaposed against the tapestry of Seattle's grit. He could hear the laughter and chatter of high-powered entrepreneurs around him, yet a tinge of emptiness gnawed at his insides. The glimmer of his fortune felt colder than the steel-gray skies overhead, a realization that the value of his success had faded against the stark backdrop of someone else's struggle. The vibrant mingling of the city faded as his attention snagged on three identical girls, their curly brown hair bouncing as they maneuvered amid bustling adults. Clutching dusty backpacks and faded school books, Emily, Rose, and Lila were shepherded away by a social worker. Each girl as sorrowful gaze seared into him, igniting a flame of discomfort he couldn't extinguish. They were forced to leave their home, he learned through a nearby volunteer, just as they were juggling school and part-time jobs. The feeling of detachment overwhelmed Alex. A painful self-awareness washed over him as he contemplated how he built an empire on the backs of countless sacrifices. When had his path diverged so drastically? As he shared a laugh with those who knew only the acumen of numbers, he couldn't shake the longing for something more meaningful: connection, purpose, family. The girls represented what he had lost, a vibrant life void of corporate gloss. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Weeks melted into one another as Alex embraced the girls into his life. Laughter spilled into his plush office, echoing against the sterile surroundings, bringing warmth he hadn't known in years. He shared his journey, revealing the relentless grind behind his ascent, and creating a space for the triplets to dream beyond their circumstances. The walls that had divided them crumbled, and yet now that bond felt precarious, a floating lifeline tethered to a storm of resentment. Alex's joy hit turbulence during a high-stakes meeting when his unscrupulous business partner belittled the triplets' aspirations, dismissing their hard work. As incredulousness gripped him, the confidence that the girls had fostered began to fray. Anguish twisted in his gut, his internal battle crystallized. To advocate for those whom society marginalized felt like facing an avalanche alone, while the comfort of remaining silent glimmered invitingly. In that moment of distress, Alex sensed the weight of his morals pressing heavily against the momentum of his career. Would defending the girls mean risking his reputation, the empire he built, or worse, falling deeper into the shadows of a system he had become part of? With fear gnawing at the edges of his heart, the urgency of choice tightened its grip. Alex stood teetering on the brink of a defining moment, caught between comfort and the compelling urgency of defending their dreams, a decision that would reshape everything, for both him and the sisters. The race against time and betrayal was on, but would he choose to confront his greatest fear? In the days that followed, Alex wrestled with the consequences of his silence. The corporate world, with its cold efficiency, pressed in on him like the weight of a suffocating fog. Meetings felt like charades, his bright facade concealing a growing tumult within. Each day, he watched the triplets flourish despite their circumstances, their resilience igniting a flicker of determination in him that he had long buried under layers of ambition and success. The tension coiled tighter within him as he formulated a plan. What if he could leverage his influence to create a platform for the girls? His mind raced with ideas about mentorship programs, scholarships, even grants to support their dreams. Yet the nagging voice of doubt persisted. Was he merely substituting one form of power for another, attempting to play the savior without truly understanding their struggles? One evening, as he sat alone in his expansive office, he found himself staring at blank pages of potential programs, the sunlight filtering through high-rise windows and casting elongated shadows. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, indecision locking him in place. He had signed countless deals without a second thought, yet here he was, paralyzed at the thought of amplifying the girls' voices. The irony was suffocating. The next morning, Alex made a decision that would shake his foundations. He canceled a series of meetings that revolved purely around profits and instead restructured his day to join Emily, Rose, and Lila at their after-school program. Watching them in that vibrant environment ignited his resolve. A sense of purpose blossomed within him as he immersed himself in their world. He observed how they interacted with their peers, passionate and hopeful, despite overwhelming adversities. Fueled by an urgent need to act, Alex reached out to community organizations, hoping to establish connections that could lead to meaningful changes. Each step toward engagement transformed his dread into clarity. He discovered he had hidden negotiation skills beyond his boardroom prowess. Aligning the girls' aspirations with community resources felt less like charity and more like a revolution waiting to happen. But as he delved deeper, the shadows of skepticism resurfaced. His business partner had an uncanny knack for manipulating narratives, casting doubt on anything that didn't translate into profit. Alex's enhancing resolve clashed violently with this reality. During a critical board meeting, he prepared to present his ideas for supporting the triplets, knowing full well the possible repercussions. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the room as he laid out a strategy for leveraging his company's resources to uplift underrepresented youth. His voice trembled initially, but as he spoke of the girls as individuals with futures worth investing in, his confidence grew. He felt a palpable shift in the atmosphere, a blend of disbelief and intrigue mingling with the familiar tension of high-stakes business. Then his partner intervened, summoning the full weight of his cynicism. "You're going to risk our standing for a PR stunt?" he scoffed, his eyes narrowing as he dissected Alex's intentions. The laughter that followed pierced through Alex, like shards of ice driving home a painful truth he had been unwilling to confront. "Don't you understand?" Alex shot back, his voice stronger than he anticipated. "This isn't just about PR. It's about the lives we can impact. Isn't that worth more than profit margins?" He could feel the slippery descent into conflict, an avenue he had avoided for too long. With arms crossed and expressions skeptical, the board members glanced at each other, waiting for a response, forcing Alex into an unwelcome spotlight. The moment stretched unbearably, rife with the tension of uncertain allegiances and the looming fear of rejection. Would he stand firm on his newfound principles, or would fear of failure send him scrambling back to the safety of corporate greed? The stakes had never been more personal, and as the silence grew, Alex realized that he was at a crossroads, not just for himself, but for the girls who had inspired him to see beyond his gilded cage. What came next would determine not just his future, but whether he chose to redefine success itself against overwhelming odds. Would he finally embrace the risk of authenticity, or would the shadows of his past suffocate this flicker of hope? The air in the boardroom grew thick with tension, hovering like a storm cloud ready to break. Alex could feel every pair of eyes scrutinizing him, each moment elongating as if to test his resolve. Doubt clawed at his gut, but he clung to his newfound purpose like a life raft in tumultuous seas. He couldn't turn back now. "Don't mistake this for vulnerability," he asserted, channeling the strength he had witnessed in Emily, Rose, and Lila. "This is an opportunity to redefine our role in the community. It's not just about bottom lines anymore." His voice echoed in the silence, and for a fleeting moment, he felt a sense of empowerment. It was exhilarating and terrifying, yet the board members remained unmoved. They shuffled papers as though searching for an escape route, their avoidance palpable. One by one, they filed through his bullet points, gutting his passion with all the fervor of seasoned analysts calculating the risks. Alex's pulse quickened. Was this what it felt like to fight for something greater than oneself? He had been climbing so many ladders, but for what? To silence the discomfort echoing in his conscience? "Your focus seems misplaced, Alex," his partner chimed in, his voice oily and condescending. "These girls want to fill our coffers. How do we package this as a win?" The board chuckled, and Alex felt a hot wave of anger wash over him. It felt so easy for them to dismiss heart-wrenching stories, to reduce lives to mere profit calculations. Forcing himself to breathe, he recognized this was not only about the triplets, this was about his metamorphosis. He realized he had spent years pursuing success as defined by spreadsheets and accolades, but this was different. It was messy and human, and a flicker of desperation ignited a fire within him. Imagine being locked in a room without any windows or light, knowing the key to free you lies in the hands of the ones outside, Alex ventured, his metaphor winging through the silence. Now imagine you have the chance to be that key. Slowly, curiosity began to replace skepticism in the faces around the table. It wasn't the logic they thrived on, but somewhere in the depths of their corporate armor, empathy stirred. Let us take a step back, he offered, feeling the last remnants of caution fall away. I'm not proposing charity that strips dignity. I'm talking about empowerment that creates lasting change. His words hung heavy in the air, understated yet compelling, like a spark waiting for kindling. But just when it seemed a shift might occur, an executive lost in their own preoccupation pulled Alex back to reality. We can't afford distraction. Let us stick to the agenda, she said dismissively, rolling her eyes. The murmur of agreement among others echoed the crushing uncertainty surrounding Alex. He stood at the precipice of a pivotal moment. Would he let their narrow-mindedness extinguish the burgeoning fire within him? For years he had curbed his impulses for the sake of control and convention. Fear of rejection washed over him, but so did profound determination. I refuse to accept rejection as the final word on this. If I have to stand alone, then so be it, Alex declared, his voice steadier than he felt. I'll seek support outside these walls, people who believe in potential instead of profit margins. I will make a difference. But also, I'll hold you all accountable for your part in this. The boardroom fell silent, caught off guard by his sudden audacity. He walked away from the meeting feeling both empowered and vulnerable, a heady mix of emotions swirling inside him. For the first time in years, he was ready to act based on values rather than obligations. As he exited the building, adrenaline coursed through him, suffusing his thoughts with daring possibilities. He would rally allies, build partnerships, and carve a space where grace met ambition. There was no turning back, no squeezing into a mold that suffocated his desires. The greater test lay ahead. Would people who had only known the corporate game remain steadfast in their apathy? Or would the tide of change he envisioned spark a movement toward authenticity? With this in mind, Alex set his sights on the triplets again, who were blossoming in their pursuits. He imagined their faces lighting up upon hearing his plans, illustrations of hope dancing vividly in his mind. Yet the very real fear gnawed at him. Would they see him as a champion or merely a reluctant benefactor? The moment arrived as he pulled out his phone, lines of communication so crucial to his vision opening before him. He hesitated, heart pounding with the weight of what was at stake. The time had come to face not just the board but the consequences of his resolve. Would he be able to navigate this convoluted path without losing himself in the process? The journey was just beginning, and uncertainty reigned, but Alex was determined to uncover the truth of what it meant to lead with heart, and hope flickered just ahead. Alex stood in the parking lot, his heart echoing with uncertainty as he dialed the number for the triplets. He could feel the anticipation tightening around him. Each ring amplified his doubts. What if he failed to meet their expectations? What if his plan fell apart, shattering the hope he had just begun to nurture? With a deep breath, he expelled the air in a rush, resolving to put himself forward as someone who could champion their cause. The call connected, and he was greeted by an enthusiastic voice that dispelled some of his apprehensions. Alex! We were just talking about you. Lila's excitement lit up the line, but it also heightened the stakes. He couldn't falter now. The moment required raw honesty and unwavering commitment. Hey, Lila. I've got something important to discuss, he said, trying to convey the gravity in his tone without dampening her spirit. The mood shifted, and she sensed it. Her voice grew serious. What's up? I want to support your plans for the bakery. No, more than that. I want to empower you all to own this dream fully, he began, feeling a palpable shift in his own resolve. I had a meeting with the board today, and let us just say they weren't fully on board with my vision. He could imagine her brow furrowing at the other end of the line. But you didn't back down, did you? No. I fought for it. I want to take this a step further. Instead of seeking their approval, I want to create a network of partners who can truly invest in what you girls are building. His voice gained strength, fueled by the notion that he might actually be able to facilitate real change. The idea made him feel less alone. Wow! That sounds amazing, Alex. But how? I mean, it feels like such a big jump from where we are. Vulnerability crept into her words, revealing the trepidation beneath their shared ambitions. You've got to believe that what you're doing is valuable. We can reach out to local businesses, even larger investors who understand our approach, the ones not just chasing profits, he strategized, envisioning a path that would do justice to their dreams. But I need you to trust in your abilities, to be authentic. You're what can make this change happen, not just me. Silence lingered on the line. Alex could feel her grappling with the weight of his expectations, and he realized that he was asking her to step outside her comfort zone, just as he had. How could he demand courage from others when he was still wrestling with his own? I'm scared, she finally admitted, her honesty a balm to his own insecurities. What if it doesn't work out? What if we make all these plans and then it fails? Failure doesn't mean the end. It's a way to refine our approach. Look at what you've done despite everything. Your hard work and determination is already a success. His voice softened, recognizing that their journeys were intertwined. Let us risk it together. I'll be right here, fighting alongside you. The conversation shifted gears as they began brainstorming ideas, their enthusiasm infectious. But beneath that excitement lurked a tension. Could they align their visions? What if the realities of their disparate worlds clashed more painfully than expected? As they hung up, a wave of camaraderie surged through Alex. He felt more than just an ally. He sensed a stirring within himself, a confession that perhaps this venture reflected the person he desperately wanted to become, a leader, a catalyst for change. But challenges lay ahead. The triplets' aspirations depended on him gathering the right resources and allies. He needed to present a compelling case that resonated with prospective partners, making them see what potential lay not just in profit but in impact. That evening, as he settled on his couch, he stifled a yawn, combating fatigue with exhilaration. He began drafting a plan, a presentation that encompassed the triplets' story, their vision, the community's needs, and how his company could serve as a framework for their success while still holding them accountable. Each stroke of his pen felt significant, yet shadows of doubt danced in the periphery of his mind. What if he failed to accurately communicate their story, or worse still, misrepresented their aspirations? The quest for authenticity now extended beyond the boardroom. It permeated his entire being. He had to fully embrace vulnerability, not just for the triplets but also for his own growth. With clarity came resolve. In that moment of introspection, Alex realized he was standing at another precipice. The true test would reveal itself in the coming days, where every phone call, every pitch, and every encounter would lay the groundwork for the future he envisioned. As he pored over ideas late into the night, anticipation fueled him. But the question lingered: would his newfound determination align with the reality of a corporate world resistant to change? The stakes felt higher than ever. Tomorrow would demand an audacious leap, a confrontation with skepticism that lurked in the shadows. What he didn't know was that hidden within his allies lay strengths he hadn't yet anticipated, waiting to be unleashed. Alex woke early, the dawn's light spilling through his window and casting sharp shadows that danced along his walls. He felt a palpable energy in the air as he prepared for the day ahead. It was a day of actions, not just words, and that thought both excited and frightened him. The gravity of what lay before him weighed heavily, yet the resolve was burning within him. He meticulously reviewed his presentation, his hands moving feverishly as he crafted each slide to represent the dreams of the triplets. Who were they if not the embodiment of hope at its most resilient? Each bullet point morphed into a testament of their potential, their struggles translating into a compelling narrative. He wasn't just selling pastries, they were selling a vision, a story, a legacy rooted in authenticity. As he arrived at the office, the world seemed to spin a little faster. He met with a few colleagues, discussing the morning's agenda with practiced ease. But inside, he was a flurry of thoughts. How would he approach the board? Their skepticism had never been easier to spot than during his last meeting. He scribbled notes, rehearsing responses to questions he anticipated but dreaded. Would they see worth beyond a profit margin? Past numbers and analytics? With every passing hour, his mind swirled with a mix of concern and excitement. Confidence battled with doubt. He could rally the triplets' ambition, but what if the corporate world proved impenetrable? His phone buzzed a message from Lila. Can we handle the presentation together? I feel like my input can really bolster our vision. His spirits lifted. They were in this together, a unity he found strength in. He replied instantly, arranging to meet before their scheduled presentation. In the glass-walled conference room, the tension was almost tangible as he waited for the board to file in. A knot twisted in his stomach, their faces appeared blank, expressions unreadable. Yet, as he scanned the room, he saw two familiar faces, the triplets, Lila and her sisters, seated expectantly, which grounded him. They had come to support him, a reminder of his purpose. He began the presentation, feeling the rhythm of his words gain momentum. He passionately conveyed their dream, illustrating their potential not just for profit, but for lasting impact in the community. He shared stories of their journey, the late nights spent perfecting recipes, the drive, the struggles, and how they had captivated local patrons already. But when he opened the floor for questions, the energy shifted. Doubt crept in like a shadow. One of the board members leaned forward, skepticism dripping from his tone. But how do you expect us to invest in a whimsical notion? Bakeries are a dime a dozen. Without promising numbers, why should we take this risk? Alex felt the blood rush to his head. Because there's more at stake here than just numbers, he replied, courage swelling within him. This isn't just about baking, it's about offering something meaningful that resonates with people as values. It's about community, connection, and future possibilities. His voice sharpened, fueled by an urgency he hadn't anticipated. He turned to Lila, who met his gaze with unwavering faith. It was a reminder of why they were together in this fight. Their dreams deserved to be heard, and so did they. As the questions continued, challenges poured in, yet he found clarity amidst the chaos. He discovered a different layer of himself, an advocate. Every query from the board spurred a deeper conviction within him. He began to think on his feet, shaping the conversation, guiding it back to the heart of what mattered. Then, just as the balance seemed to teeter on the edge, Lila stepped up. Her voice was steady, imbued with a firm resolve that echoed through the room. We're not asking for a handout. We're inviting you to join us on this journey. Our dream is your dream, and together, we can create something incredible. Hearing her words resonated deeply. There was an unmistakable shift in the room. But as Alex drove the presentation home, recounting the challenges that lay ahead, he couldn't help but question if he had truly prepared for the follow-up. What if they said no? What if all this effort only brought him back to a starting point? Just as he began to ease into a sense of accomplishment, his phone vibrated in his pocket, a reminder of a brewing storm he couldn't ignore. He glanced at the notification, a message from a rival company intending to snatch away not just his ideas but the future he was striving to build alongside the triplets. What had initially felt like a breakthrough began to feel like a fragile victory. The stakes had never felt higher, challenging not only their aspirations but also the very foundation of their enterprise. His heart raced as he considered the potential fallout. Would he need to confront this rival? Could he protect what they had worked so hard to build? The realization hit hard. Success was going to demand not just vision but an unrelenting, fierce protection of that vision. Suddenly, the challenges ahead appeared stark and undeniable. Would they have the strength to fight back? Alex stood at yet another threshold, contemplating not just the pitch to the board but the battle for their future. The next step loomed larger than any he had yet faced, screaming for resolution. Would they rise, or would they succumb to the pressure? A new confrontation awaited, one that would test every ounce of their resolve. Alex felt as though the walls of the conference room were closing in on him. The flickering fluorescent lights above cast a harsh glow, underscoring the gravity of his predicament. He had presented their hopes and dreams, only to find himself now facing an imminent threat that could unravel everything they had nurtured. The tension pulsed through him, mingling with the fear of potential failure. He had to act fast, but how? He excused himself from the conference table, his chest tight with uncertainty. Outside the room, the air felt lighter, yet his thoughts churned like a tempest. He leaned against the wall, heart pounding in synchrony with the internal chaos. The message from the rival company flashed repeatedly in his mind, but beneath that flicker, a glimmer of determination began to emerge. This was not just about ideas anymore. This was an urgent call to arms. He reached for his phone, the device feeling heavy in his palm. The opportunity to call Lila presented itself, but he hesitated. The potential of bringing her into this conversation felt like a risk, one that might burden her with fear. She had stepped up admirably during the presentation, proving her worth, but this was a fight he had to prepare for. Every second wasted felt like a misstep. He needed to gather information, to create a strategy before striking out into battle. Alex took a deep breath, forcing himself to regain composure. He envisioned the rival company, its slick marketing and sharp business acumen. They wouldn't simply confront him. They'd undermine their efforts in quieter, more insidious ways. Their approach would be tactical, calculated, and designed to exploit any perceived vulnerability. His thoughts raced back to the presentation, where a sense of unity had filled the room, but now, surrounded by uncertainty, doubt clawed at those memories. What if they found gaps in his defenses? He ran a hand through his hair, the move a feeble attempt to dispel the frustration mounting within him. The urgency of the moment demanded action, not second-guessing. With a decision made, he tapped Lila's name into his contacts and hit call. Her voice came through with an immediate calmness. "Alex? What's going on? We have a situation. We need to figure out a way to protect our vision against this incoming threat." "There was a message from a rival company. They're eyeing our concept," he replied, keeping his tone steady despite the turmoil he felt inside. "Are you serious?" Her voice took on an edge of disbelief. "What do they know?" "Enough to see our potential as a threat to them. We don't have time to waste. Let's brainstorm how we can turn this around. I know we can find a way to position ourselves better. I'll pull our analytics and recent customer feedback, see what strengths we can leverage. We can't allow anyone to take away what we've worked for," she responded, her unwavering confidence echoing a reassurance he desperately needed. "Absolutely. Let's meet soon, and tackle this like we did in the beginning. Together." His resolve strengthened, bolstered by her belief in their collective strength. But as the conversation ended, he grappled with an unsettling realization: this rival company didn't just represent an external threat, it highlighted weaknesses he hadn't anticipated within himself. He was no longer just an advocate for the triplets' dreams, he was their defender in this new reality, and the weight of that responsibility loomed large. With clarity emerging from the haze of anxiety, he realized that this confrontation could unlock hidden capabilities he had yet to tap into. He needed to embrace this challenge, cultivating an inner resilience to both advocate and protect. He returned to the conference room, his mind swirling with strategies. How could he frame their unique position in a way that would shield them? The words of the board echoed, "Why should we take this risk?" He needed to craft a narrative that not only answered that question but positioned them as a vanguard in an evolving market. The next meeting wouldn't just be about the pastries or the triplets' struggles. It was time to redefine the mission, to articulate a vision that was irrefutably compelling. This was about showing the board that their venture was not just another bakery, it was the emergence of a new path. As he prepared to pitch not only their vision, but also a fierce defense of their ideas, the thrill of emerging potential surged through him. The battle was upon him, and within that battle was the key to unlocking both individual and shared growth. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts, snapping him back to the impressive glass walls around him. Lila entered, ready for the brainstorming session ahead. The atmosphere shifted instantly, transforming the previous doubts into a palpable resolve. Together, they would forge a mighty plan. In that moment, the stakes became clearer. This was not merely about pastries but entrepreneurship, identity, and tenacity. But lurking still was the specter of the rival company, each moment of confidence balanced by the uncertainty of what lay ahead. What was the next chess move? More than ever, Alex needed to prepare for the storm that was about to break. The moment of confrontation loomed, promising trial and perhaps transformation. The meeting room buzzed as Lila and Alex settled down, their laptops opening in sync, each poised for battle in this unexpected war. Projected on the screen was a mural of their dreams, colorful templates, energetic designs, yet now it felt fragile under the shadow of an encroaching rival. Alex's fingers hovered over the keyboard as he prepared to summarize their strengths, but his thoughts kept drifting to the lurking threat. What kind of game were they playing? Okay, let us break this down, Lila said, her voice cutting through the tension. What exactly do we know about them? Can we find out how close they are to launching something similar? I suspect they're already far along, he replied, frustration leaking into his tone. They don't just target ideas. They nurture them to harvest. If we don't reposition ourselves quickly, we risk losing everything. She nodded, her focus sharpening. Then we have to create an angle they can't mimic. Let us assess feedback from our customers. Their loyalty can be a weapon. Uneasy energy coursed through the room, blending determination and despair. They cared intensely about the venture, about the investment of themselves over the 2 years that had birthed it. He felt the remnants of self-doubt creeping in again, gnawing at him. Was he truly the right leader? His heart raced not from the challenges ahead but from the fear of personal inadequacy. Alex, you're overthinking it, Lila interjected, her intuition capturing his turmoil. This is where we shine. Remember what our customers said about how we grew from those first early days. We're not just selling pastries. We're offering something authentic. They connect with us. Yes, but can that carry us against a polished competitor? They'll have more resources, more visibility. The sharp edge of worry cut through his resolve, rendering him momentarily paralyzed. He thought of the board, the expectations, the looming possibility of failure. Listen, Lila leaned forward, eyes steady. This isn't just about winning or losing. This is about holding on to what defines us. We know our story, the resilience behind our creation, a story they can't replicate. Let us lean into that authenticity. Her words were like candles casting light into a murky alleyway. Hidden corners began to reveal themselves, his insecurities, his doubts. Perhaps it wasn't merely about defending their position. It was about celebrating their journey. The most compelling narrative was the one forged through trials they had already faced. We can create a pitch that tells the world why our approach is timeless, Alex said, his voice gaining vigor. We need to highlight our dedication, the heart and soul behind every pastry, appealing to those who crave more than just sustenance. We need to use our story as a shield. And we need to be tactical as well, Lila added, her demeanor shifting into that of a fierce ally. We can analyze their approach, identify weaknesses and exploit them. We're not without resources, we have each other. They began delving into analytics, mapping customer sentiment, reflecting on the innate advantages they possessed, a community of supporters who had tasted their vision, their resolve. While they surfed the data, old fears transformed. Revelations bubbled up, hidden commitments Alex and Lila had forged not just as partners but as friends fighting for a common dream. In that moment of camaraderie, he felt an undercurrent of clarity. He was more than just a defender, he was a pivotal player in this evolving narrative. The storm looming overhead began to feel less ominous, no longer a harbinger of doom but a challenge to navigate together. It wasn't long before they had crafted preliminary ideas for the pitch they'd present to the board. Alex's heart began to surge with an exhilarating mixture of hope and resolve, a pulsating drive reflected in Lila's determined eyes. As they wrapped up their strategy session, Alex paused, contemplating their mission one last time. The ashes of uncertainty transformed into the embers of potential, thriving on resilience, authenticity, and teamwork. Stepping back, he realized the stakes were not just about survival, they were about evolution. Are you ready for this, Lila? The risk is real, but this could be everything, he questioned, his voice tinged with both excitement and apprehension. Absolutely, if we're going to face them, we'll do it head on. Let us prepare our pitch and make sure it resonates, she stated, her confidence affirming his own. But as they launched into preparation mode, An unsettling thought flickered in Alex's mind. What if their best wasn't enough? He had been the one to emphasize authenticity, yet he feared that might not stand against corporate might. They had prepared brilliantly for combat, but in the battle of ideas, would their narrative hold? As the night deepened around them, they established a framework, a bulwark of ideas against the tide of anxiety. However, beneath the surface, Alex could feel the pull of an unspoken challenge within himself. Would he rise to the occasion when it truly mattered? The time would soon come to unveil their narrative. Yet, within Alex, an unanswered question lingered, hinting at a critical moment of revelation. Would he fight for the vision they had created together, or would shadows of doubt consume him? The stakes were set. The future awaited his decision. Beneath the dim light of the conference room, Alex and Lila immersed themselves in refining their pitch. The mundane artifacts of corporate life, the plush chairs, the sterile walls, became a backdrop for their evolving determination. The laptop screens flickered with data, yet they weren't merely graphs and charts. They represented the lifeblood of their shared vision, their dreams brewed into pastries that spoke to the heart. Okay, let us flesh out our unique proposition, Lila said, her finger tapping on the stack of notes. Each note was a reminder of their journey. We need to stress our commitment to quality over mere quantity. That's what will resonate. As she spoke, Alex noted the fire behind her words. It sparked something in him, a transformative emotion stirring beneath layers of uncertainty. How often had he allowed himself to be overshadowed by fear? The voice of doubt had whispered too long, hesitating at the edge of his heart, suffocating his potential. I think we should lead with a story, he suggested, hesitantly. Something about how we started, and why our values matter. The tentative tone of his proposal reflected his lingering insecurities. Directing attention to their past felt more like exposing vulnerabilities than showcasing confidence. Lila paused, glancing at him intently. That's exactly it, she nodded. But you need to take the reins. This is your moment as a leader. You can't hold back now. Something within him flickered at her words and urged to break free from the chains of his self-doubt. He had often played it safe, sticking to the sidelines. But now, faced with an opportunity to define their narrative, he felt the gravity of responsibility surge within him. Could he rise to this challenge? Nervously, he cleared his throat, echoing the sentiment he had established in his mind. We grew from nothing, and our customers witnessed that journey. They didn't just buy into our pastries, they invested in us. We became part of their lives. Lila's enthusiasm punctuated the air. Exactly. Let them embody that journey. And let us also talk about your evolution as a leader. How the failures shaped you. That idea struck a chord with him. He realized he hadn't fully embraced his own development. The self-doubt that crippled him was a reflection of his diluted self-image. The missed chances and stumbles weren't just failures, they were stepping stones on his path to growth. Even when I felt inadequate, every misstep taught me something, he confessed, his voice gaining strength. The fear had always been a part of the process, but maybe it was meant to guide me, not destroy me. Lila's eyes sparkled with understanding. That's your story. The struggles behind crafting every pastry, the decisions that led you to this moment. Be honest, be vulnerable. People connect with humanity. The conversation flowed, pushing Alex further out of his comfort zone. Each assertion chipped away at the doubts that clung to him, revealing a newfound conviction. He began recounting more about their early days, missing funds, frantic recipe tests, and late nights fueled by coffee and resolve. As the night grew deeper, fueled by a relentless zeal for their mission, Alex discovered a different kind of clarity. He wasn't just preparing to present to the board, he was preparing to affirm he was worth the title of leader. Sharing his own journey was a step towards claiming his place, confronting the vulnerability head-on. But as momentum built, a stark realization crept in. He could hear the faint echo of the competitor's advances outside their shared bubble of creativity. The looming threat knotted in his stomach again like a persistent weight. Lila! He exclaimed suddenly, what if they dismiss us? What if our story doesn't resonate with them in the way we intend? Then we have to be ready to pivot. Adjust the narrative until it resonates. But don't deviate from the truth, she replied firmly, as if steadying him against his internal storm. Despite her reassurance, the question lingered, a relentless specter gnawing at his newfound confidence. He understood the need for adaptability, yet he still feared that, at its core, he wasn't equipped to face the challenge. What if the very essence of their unique identity couldn't withstand the polished facade of the competitor? The hour grew late, and doubts cloaked the room once more. As they scripted their pitch, the fierce determination inside Alex faced an existential battle against the echo of uncertainty. Would the heart behind their pastries be enough? Would he be enough? A deep breath ignited a flicker of resilience within him. With a pen in hand and Lila by his side, he was ready to defend not just a business but an identity born from struggles and passion. Yet the night held on to its secrets. The competition loomed, but what awaited them in the morning? They had forged a compelling narrative, but would it withstand the scrutiny of the board? As he tucked the notes under his arm, the question reverberated: would their story ultimately be the lifeline they needed, or would it be their undoing? The morning sun streamed through the blinds, casting sharp lines across the conference room table, a metaphorical countdown to the pivotal moment that awaited Alex. His heart raced as he sat there, flipping through their meticulously crafted pitch. Yet the notes blurred before him, each line igniting fresh bouts of self-doubt. This was not merely a presentation, it was the culmination of every late night, every calculated risk. The burden of their burgeoning dream loomed large, casting shadows over his resolve. Lila arrived, her expression a blend of excitement and determination. "Ready?" she asked, her tone light yet firm. "Yeah. I mean, as ready as I can be." His voice faltered, betraying the confidence he desperately wanted to radiate. "It's going to be great. Just own your story. Remember, they want authenticity." Lila's encouragement fueled a flicker of hope in him, but the echoes of doubt wrestled within, refusing to yield easily. As the two set up their materials, the persistent anxiety morphed into contemplation. The juxtaposition of their passion and the impending scrutiny of the board felt like standing on the edge of a precipice. What if past failures re-emerged, shadowing his narrative? Would he even sound persuasive if every unfinished thought screamed inadequacy? They entered the boardroom, the air tense with unspoken expectations. Flanked by seasoned executives, Alex felt the weight of their gazes like physical pressure on his chest. As the presentation began, he locked eyes with Lila, whose unwavering belief in him sparked something primal. "And this is where the journey started," Lila explained, cueing Alex to share his truth. He inhaled sharply, stabilizing his nerves. "We were just two people with a passion for pastries, driven by our experiences." The words felt foreign, but as he spoke, he envisioned every challenge they'd faced together. Every miscalculation was a lesson, every failure was a stepping stone toward this moment. "We didn't just create pastries, we built community." Their attentive audience shifted uneasily, eyebrows raised as Alex spoke from the heart. The walls of formality began to melt away, revealing an authentic connection to their mission. He continued, acknowledging his fears, his setbacks, how they nearly lost everything more than once. "I realize that the fear of failure is a part of the journey," he admitted, sensing the collective engagement of the board. "But that fear turned into fuel. And I want to share that with others." A silence engulfed the room as he concluded, feeling the zeal that had initially propelled him. His journey no longer felt like a burden but an empowering narrative. Then came the moment he both awaited and dreaded, the questions. "Interesting perspective, Alex," one board member began, their tone revealing skepticism. "But how do you plan to differentiate in a market that is extremely competitive?" Sweat beaded at his temples. The question cut, a direct confrontation with his apprehensions. "While many push for mass production, we choose quality and community. Authenticity isn't just our claim, it's our strategy. We want to create lasting relationships with our customers. They aren't just consumers, they're a part of our journey." The answer tumbled out, unfiltered, driven by the depth of his convictions. Every nod and murmured response in the room hinted that they weren't just hearing his campaign, but experiencing his resolve. And just as he began to ride the momentum of the discussion, old fears crept back in. What if the veneer of corporate competitiveness overshadowed his authenticity? What if they pulled the rug from under his feet, reminding him of past failures? Each follow-up question tested his limits, every inquiry forcing him to strip down layers of professionalism and stand raw in his vulnerability. Yet, with every answer he felt a shift, layers of doubt peeled back. He was learning to navigate this landscape, simultaneously owning both his knowledge and his missteps. The presentation sparked a shift within him, but the doubt still licked at the edges of his newfound confidence. He realized that he needed to embrace the uncertainty, to mold it into a part of his narrative. Adaptability is our strength, he declared, voicing a strategy that outlined flexibility without compromising on authenticity. As the discussion wrapped up and the board members exchanged whispers, Alex caught Lila's eye, reflecting a cautious optimism that mirrored his emotions. He had confronted a significant inner battle, revealing pieces of himself that felt both risky and liberating. Yet, deep inside, a new dread loomed. Would the sincerity of his words translate into the validation they desperately needed? As they awaited feedback, the lingering question remained: had he truly stripped away the armor of self-doubt, or was it merely concealed beneath their polished surface? Just then, a board member leaned forward, a glimmer of intrigue in their eyes. "What you're proposing is compelling, but can you deliver?" The question hung heavy in the air, cracking open the door to an impending conflict. The moment of truth arrived. Alex's answer would determine not only their fate but also the authenticity of his transformation. In the crisp afternoon light streaming through the conference room's expansive windows, Alex felt a sense of grounded clarity. The tension that had gripped him in the previous meetings now transformed into a resolute calm. The question posed by the board was not merely about delivery. It was a moment for him to reclaim his narrative, both for himself and for the triplets who had inspired his journey. "We can deliver," he asserted, voice steady as he locked eyes with the board members, searching for an opening where doubt had once resided. "We've spent months fine-tuning our processes, understanding our audience, and bringing community-focused insights into our operations. We're not just another bakery. We are a brand rooted in resilience, creativity, and empowerment." His confidence surged with each word, igniting a conviction that had been dormant for far too long. As he continued, he leaned into the metaphor of his past, articulating how their challenges had shaped their identity. "Every setback, every misstep taught us invaluable lessons about what our community craves. It's about more than just baked goods, it's about crafting experiences that resonate. Our journey resonates deeply with them, and that relationship drives customer loyalty." The board listened, their skepticism morphing gradually into intrigue. He observed their expressions. They seemed captivated, weighing his words against benchmarks they were accustomed to. Beneath the polished surface of corporate veneer, Alex sensed the board beginning to recognize the power of authenticity, something he had fought so hard to assert. Finally, he presented a tactical proposal, not merely supporting the triplets' dreams but integrating them seamlessly into their company's strategic growth. "Let's establish a mentorship program, supported by our profits. We'll not only create jobs but foster new entrepreneurs among the youth in our community. Imagine the positive impact, real change through action." The room buzzed with murmurs. Alex's heart raced, buoyed by the shifting dynamics in the air. They were discussing potential, an intoxicating notion that had once felt utterly out of reach. In that moment of connection, he was no longer an outsider in a world monopolized by profits. He belonged to a new collective narrative, driven by purpose and humanity. It was Lila's penetrating voice that snapped him back. "A robust partnership can build this community, showing the world what we can achieve together." She took his cue and expanded on their vision, intertwining the triplets' aspirations with Alex's business acumen. The synergy rolled like an unstoppable force, and the board members began to envision the reflection of their own impact in the triplets' story. As the discussion progressed, Alex's fears receded, replaced by a newfound belief in what they were building together. Their dreams transcended aspirational rhetoric and solidified into credible action. The question of whether they could deliver was no longer a simple transactional inquiry. it became a fundamental realization that the authenticity they offered was, in fact, a robust competitive advantage. With the meeting wrapping up, Alex received a commendation from one of the senior members. "I must admit, your vision is compelling. Let us explore this partnership strategy further. I see potential here." Excitement crackled in the room as Lila and Alex shared a glance of triumph. They had successfully navigated the complexities of doubt, both internal and external, transforming it into an undeniable force for change. In the following days, as Alex implemented the strategies discussed, he felt an unsettling satisfaction settle into his bones. Recognition from the board solidified his place not as an impersonal corporate figure, but as a leader who had fought his battles and emerged transformed. The triplets flourished under their budding mentorship program, blooming into confident young entrepreneurs who aimed not just to survive but to thrive. Alex's interactions with the triplets evolved into genuine familial connections. Their shared laughter, the sparkle in their eyes as they baked together, and the growing sense of purpose layered onto their partnership were testaments to the growth that unified them. He realized that in fighting for their dreams, he had unearthed his own purpose, a heartfelt calling to be an authentic leader. As he stood at the vibrant bakery the triplets had imagined, now flourishing with loyal customers embracing their story, he recognized the truth. He had transformed into a champion for authenticity, a beacon of hope not just for himself but for those who had wrestled against invisible boundaries. The horizon looked bright. He had transcended the limitations of standards set by previous success and forged ahead without fear of the ticking clock or the weight of past failures. As he looked around at the success they created together, a profound recognition illuminated his vision, a reaffirmation that leadership indeed flourishes in resilience, heart, and connection. In this chapter of his life, Alex McKinley stood not just as a businessman but as a father figure, a mentor, and a champion for the dreams of others. He had achieved more than riches, he had cultivated a landscape thriving in hope and humanity. This is your moment to reflect on such stories of transformation and authenticity. Subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire change. Leave a like to help us take these narratives further, showcasing true journeys of resilience and growth. Comment your thoughts and reactions, share your theories about Alex's journey, or your own stories of transformation. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible conclusion. Let us spread the message of hope and perseverance together.